Delilah Millen. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Cottage Treasures Quilting. Today I'm very excited to share with you this beautiful quilt titled Big Dreams. It's the opal panel, and it was finished on a home machine by a man. He learned it in about 7 days from start to finish. So we want to teach you how, and I'm going to introduce you to Alay.
So I'm excited to show you from start to finish how to create this wonderful masterpiece. It took me 7 days with the help of Delilah to quilt this quilt, and this is the first quilt that I have done the free motion quilting myself, and we did it on our home machine, so it turned out quite magnificent. So we hope you enjoy our video and our step-by-step guide on how to create this bad boy. Alright, we're going to go ahead and baste our project before we start quilting. We don't have a big enough table, so we just laid it on the floor and we put a sheet down to keep the spray adhesive. I don't know about you, but I don't like using pins, so we're going to use some of our fabric adhesive. So we're going to lay this down, and I'm going to lay the batting down on top of it, and then I'll fold it back as I do it because I'm going to do it in halves. On your projects, you might want to make sure when you put your top quilt down that I got kitty paws sticking through the door. You want to make sure that you got some extra batting and your backing on either side of your panel, so you don't run out of space when you're quilting, because the fabric will give you some give. So I'm going to peel half of that back, and I'm going to spray this. You may want to open the windows up after you do this. Alright, there you go. She's now basted, and we're ready to start quilting this bad boy. Alright, so we're going to start drawing. I'm going to draw the first pattern in the center because I feel like the center is the focal point, and I want to make sure it looks really good. So we had taken this little piece of plexi on our own time, and we had drawn what we think the pattern's going to look like before the big leaves just in the center. So now I'm going to use my water erasable pen and kind of draw a starting point for me to take over to the quilt machine. And I'm just going to kind of use this as my outline. So draw a little, it's going to be a little flower we're drawing. Looks pretty good there. And we got another one here that we've made up. So we're pretty much just freehanding this center. Looks pretty good. We're going to put a little guy here. Just kind of like an egg shape. He turned out a little bit small, but that's okay because it lined up with the inside border, so I'll make the outside border for it. We're going to be outlining all our leaves twice just to help them pop through that double batting. And And then we got another one here, right here. So yeah, just making it a little easier when we get it over to the quilt machine to have some kind of a guideline to follow. And these little designs we're doing in here aren't necessarily going to mirror what you see on this plexi here, but that's the fun thing about free motion, is you kind of make it up as you go. So now our borders are kind of following these outside leaves. And then this one. So there's our center, kind of, well, I got a little spot here left, right here. There's our center. Now I'm going to fill this whole inside with pebbles. Alright? So
Yes.
we've rolled it up, we've drawn our design in the center where we're going to start. And it's going to be a lot of pebbles, and I'm going to try and do the outline all in one go without stopping the thread at all. And we rolled it up on each side. She fits nicely. She looks like she's going to be pretty good to move around in here. So I'm going to pick a spot and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my foot and bring it back up. And this is just because I want to get the thread from the bobbin. I'm going to get the thread from the bobbin up. And I'll drop my foot again. And I'm going to go up and down a couple times just to make sure the thread has tied a couple knots in there. Now it's important to remember that if you do stop, leave your needle down, because you don't want to jump around too much. So here we go. Threads trying to get in my way here. I'm gonna try to get it out of there. There. So remember to take lots of breaks, reposition your hands. You always want your hands on both sides of the needle for the best control. Now I'm going to roll this up a little bit more. Go around my first little egg here. Now I'm not going to worry about the inside of the egg because I'll get that when I get the pebbles close to that spot. I'll get it in one continuous flow. Work my way over to the next egg here. I'm calling them eggs, but they're petals. Double back a little bit here. Reposition my hands again. After that thread malfunction, we're ready. just filling in the center. I got about half of it done, and you know, the best thing about quilting is that you're going to make mistakes. I jumped over the line a couple times, but I'm not worried about it. It's going to look fantastic in the end. I'm not very familiar with doing pebbles. I haven't done pebbles very much, but I mean, as far as I can tell, they look pretty good for a guy doing it. So I'm going to continue on here. Almost got her done. I like to mix it up. Some big ones, some small ones. Okay, so we've done the center, and I've done just pebbles to fill in the center because we really like that look for the center. And I've done the outlines of the first couple leaves, the small ones, and then I did a couple of the bigger ones outside of it. So instead of trying to quilt this whole thing in one line, I'm going to cut it into sections by bordering each leaf. And I'm just changing my thread. We're doing a kind of yellowy orange for the center. We're going off to pink, purple, then blue for the outside. But we're going to cut this into sections, and then we'll get into our feathers and paisleys. So stay tuned for that.
So in this portion of the quilt, Alay outlined a pattern to start with the Mark Be Gone. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Mark Be Gone.
Mark Be Gone fabric marking pen. And all you do is spray water on it and it disappears. So he's going to do that right now so you can see those lines leaving. And they're gone. Okay, so on this next petal that Alay's preparing, the pattern is really disappearing into the background and he's having a hard time seeing it. So he's just going to outline it with this blue washable wash away pencil that you just spray wash on. And that will help bring it to the surface a bit better for the machine quilting he's going to do here.
I'd say that looks pretty good.
Awesome.
And then we'll spray that away once I'm done quilting it. So as you can see, we've finished all of our petals. All the ones we're going to outline to quilt in later. They look pretty good. I have to admit, she's looking pretty fine. So now we're going to get ready to put our designs inside of each petal. And we're going to do that over at the machine. And we've got our practice fabric here with just one layer of batting because there's no sense in wasting our batting. And we got white fabric with some blue thread. And we've gone ahead and made little templates, just drawn kind of what size the leaf is, and we're going to use that to give ourselves a little border to work around. So I'm going to use my erasable pen and just draw this little guy. Doesn't have to be perfect, we're just practicing here. So that's about the size of that petal. So there's our border. Now we'll get ready to quilt the inside. And I think we're going to go with this pattern right here. We had just drawn this a minute ago. Sort of a clammy feather, and we'll see how it looks. Alright, so I'm going to draw. I don't know how much you guys have been quilting. I am fairly new, but as Delilah tells me, and most of the people I meet in the field, is that I'm very much a natural. I'm going to start off my first petal with the swirl just so I kind of gauge the size that I want. And that's really going to just be going in, doing the swirl, coming back out, and that first petal is done. And then I will just make my way around until I connect back with that starting point, and my starting point is right here. So I'm going to draw that on here just so I know, get a good feel. I'm thinking right about there. It's going to come into the center, do a swirl, come back out, come out in the shape of the petal, and stop there. And then from there I'll backtrack and start doing my whole feather clan. We can keep that right there for a little template. Alright, so there's the first petal. There's the first petal. I'm going to go ahead and backtrack and start slowly working my way up. And do it all in one fluid motion. Remember to take a break every once in a while and work your way back slowly.
Yeah.
So now, as you can see, we've somewhat identically done our little feather clam. Now I do have some extra open space here. You can echo back around. I think I'm going to echo back around it, or you can fill it in with pebbles or whatever you feel like doing. So I'm going to quickly echo that back in. So there you go, and then we can give it a quick spray just to see what it's going to look like when the blue's gone. And there you have it. There's one of our practice ones. I'd say that looks pretty good, and that's ready to go on the quilt. I say practice it a couple times if you haven't done this before, or if you're new to machine quilting. I've been doing machine quilting for about a week, so I'd say I'm doing pretty good. So yeah, I'm going to trace out the next one, and I'll be back with you in a minute to try out the next design. Okay. Alright, we finished this little guy here. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into the big one. This is one of the big petals, and we were trying to figure out, we tried a couple designs and we think we liked our feather the most. So if you're new to quilting feathers, I'm going to show you quick. I'm going to draw it out before I do it, and I usually draw out just the main stem, just because sometimes I get lost when I start quilting. So I'm going to start off with the feather at the top, and I'm going to put it right about, how about right about here, and I'm going to draw a little feather, and then I'm going to make my way back down. And this is where we're going to start. We're actually going to start there and do the feather and make our way down, and then from there we'll start building it up. And then when I get to the top, I like to come back in and add a little feather while I'm making my way to this side to finish them up. And we're going to try and make them as big as they're going to be wonky. They're going to be all over the place to fill up these spots, and then at the end we're going to echo over top just to fill in any of the gaps. So let's go ahead and try this. Get the thread from the bottom out again. It's always nice to have them both at the top and trim them off along the way so they don't get in your way or bunch up underneath your machine. Put the gloves on. The gloves are imperative for me because I feel like the quilt just slides so much easier. Could do a couple up and downs just to lock it in. And here we go. Now stop as much as you need to. If you keep your hands on the quilt, it's not going to jump on you, and if it does, you can always hide it. That's the nice thing about machine quilting. Don't worry about your lines either, they're just a guideline. Go wherever you like. Alright, so we've made our swirl. Pretty much ready to start quilting the feathers. So if you look at it, I actually drew this template upside down, so I'm looking at it the opposite way. If you do buy our kit, we are going to redraw these out with little arrows and kind of show you where you should start, so you're doing it in one fluid motion without ever having to cut your thread and start anywhere else. Now, mistakes are going to happen. My bobbin's going to run out, my tension's going to screw up, the spool's going to wind around itself and snap my thread. That's fine. You just clean up that little spot and then start a little inch back just to run over it and lock everything in and keep going. So I'm going to start on the outside here, and we'll go from there, see what happens. Get the gloves back on. So you can see I got a little wonky there, but nobody's going to notice that. And if you fill in all the gaps, people will notice gaps before they notice any mistakes you may have made with your quilting. And let's face it, there are no mistakes with quilting. So now, when you've done the whole one side, you want to end up back down at the bottom of the stem. If you're comfortable doing the feathers backwards, which I know I'm not, I'm going to go ahead and add a little stem, and I'm just going to be a little stem, like an 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch wider. So we'll go ahead and make our way back down to the bottom again. So there we are at the bottom. Now we're ready to do the inside. I find the inside a little more trickier for me just because I always want to make my feathers so big. You can see in my diagram I made a couple really big ones to fill it in there. Is it a mistake? Depends who's looking at the quilt. I don't think it's a mistake. You can go in there and echo in more than I did if you want to make them all consistency, but for me everything is a work of art when quilting, so once it's done, that's what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the inside here. Alright, so that's my inside. I kind of got lost in here, made a little bump, but when I echo, and you don't notice these things, and I think it looks good either way. So I'm going to go ahead and echo a little bit in here just to fill in the spaces. So there you have it. Looks pretty good compared to our sample. I'd say even better.
That looks amazing.
That looks good, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give her a spray.
Give her a spray.
So it's good to do the practice pieces until you get comfortable with the end result.
Yeah, oh for sure, because the first time I tried this, it didn't, well, first time I tried this 3 days ago, it didn't look so good. But I watched some YouTube videos and got some good techniques of doubling back, and sometimes you get your stuff stuck in a corner. I'm still trying to master my insides of the feather, but you know, for the most part, it looks fantastic. And from far away, when that's on your quilt, people aren't going to see mistakes. They're just going to be stunned by how much detail you were able to get into that one section. So it looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and draw another leaf that I can fit on here, another petal, and we'll do one more practice exercise before we start throwing it all down on the quilt. Alright, so we've done 2 already. We're going to do one more that I can fit on this practice piece, and this is one of my favorites, and it's paisleys. So we're going to go ahead and as for paisleys go, I don't really draw out much except for where my first swirl is going to go, and then you know, you just echo back a couple times to get a nice big swirl, thick swirl, and then start doing your paisleys. And you can fill in the side. I went a little goofy with a couple leaves. I did some pebbles in there and echoed it just to fill in the spots. But we're going to go ahead and do this one here. And now remember, if you're not familiar with this, just do it 5-6 times before you put it on your quilt. And they always turn out looking fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and start my first swirl. Just going to be about like that. That's what I'm going to start with. Alright. Reposition my hands here. Back. I'm using the foot as a guide on how thick my echo is. And then see, my hand's way off there again. It's a bad habit I have of not repositioning. I'm going to do another echo. Now I like to start on the outside of my swirl to start my paisleys, away from the inside swirl, so that's why I'm making my last echo out this way. And there we go, there's our swirl, so that's looking pretty good. So now we're going to go ahead and start making some paisleys, and they're a lot like the feather. I find them like long skinny fingers that are drooping, so a little droopy finger, and then you're going to echo over top of it 2-3 times until you feel like you've filled the space, and then just come back and start the next one and echo over top of it, come back, start the next one. They're all funky sizes and shapes, so let's go ahead and get started here. And then we're ready. We're filling in the space quite nice. We'll go ahead and start our next little skinny finger and start the next paisley. Now this is my trickiest part, is the paisleys in the middle. I haven't quite mastered yet, but what you want to try and do, and it's not a big deal because you can always travel along one of the lines you've already stitched to get out of there, but is to, as you're doing your paisleys, try and leave enough room that once you've echoed in the whole side, you can slide your way out. And there you have it. Paisleys are one of my absolute favorites, I find, but there you go. That's another one of our little demos, and we can practice that as many times as we need to see how it's going to fit. Get rid of that blue marker. I really highly recommend getting a fabric marker that goes away with water, because you can see it's so easy once you're done to just get it away. And there you go, there's a paisley feather without having to stop the machine once. So we've finished the outline, we've finished our practice pieces. So now the best thing to do is to move on to the actual quilt. So we have 4 small pebbles, and it's hard to decide what to do in the pebbles because I want to keep them with the flower theme. So I actually just did a little pea pod, and you can see I've just gone over and then echoed back, gone over, echoed back to make a little shape, did a little pebble, and then just echoed the pebble inside. And I did these 3, and I'm going to do this last one for you. And these are just the small. I might actually do another one in here because it's a little bit too small for me to do my elaborate feathers or paisleys. So I'll go ahead and get this thing lined up where I like to have it, and I like to sew towards me. And as you can see, there's another little pea pod to fill in one of our small little petals. So now I'm going to move on to the bigger ones, and I'm going to do a couple, and then we'll come back and we'll do one on camera for you. So now I'm filling in the petals.
Petals?
Okay, don't even worry about it.
Okay.
Now I'm filling in the petals. I've done a couple of the little bean sprouts we were talking about earlier.
Hi, Leah.
And then I did a swirl in here. I couldn't figure out what exactly to fit in this one, so I just did a swirl with a lot of echoes. Then I did the clam feather we had done earlier. I did it here, I did it right here, and now I'm going to go ahead and do it over here. So there's a little one. Could have filled in the space a little bit better here, and I kind of ended this one on a bit of an angle, but I'm gonna start in here again and do a little, maybe a little pebbling around this one, or maybe I'll echo around the whole thing and then do a couple pebbles just to kind of accent those pebbles out from the middle.
Sounds good.
Now we've filled in that full petal, and it looks very good. So we've done 3 of our feathery clams. Now I'm gonna get on to a little more elaborate of the feathers and maybe a couple paisleys in there, and we might even come up with some other designs as we go. Alright, so we want to try another pattern because we do want to have quite a few change-ups throughout. So we're going to do the plume feather, which Delilah and I really enjoy. So I'm going to draw it out first here. And there's a plume feather. So now I did one on the quilt, And I'll show you, and I'm going to do another one here so you can see. So here's the one I just did. So as you can see, we're almost done. I got just the big petals left, and she's filling in gorgeous. We've changed thread along the way from orange to pink to purple to blue, and we're finishing off the final big one. So we're just going to do another example of a paisley here on the quilting machine. Another big petal done. Yeah, as you can see, I kind of got caught in here. I didn't know what to do, so I just threw a couple paisley's and then echoed the outside of the paisley. Now, you're not going to notice that when you're looking at this thing as a whole. So, we've got some negative space left on our quilt, and we're going to just fill it in with some straight lines using a ruler. I've already done some. Here's one right here. And I've got another corner done over here. So we're going to go ahead and fill in this last spot, and once we're done this last spot, then we'll be getting ready to bind the quilt to finish it off. So you just want to angle it somewhat straight to the corner from your petals. Don't want to be going like that or like that. We'll go straight angle here. I'm going to start in the corner because I find it easier if you start in the corner and do your first line. You can match your edge up with your previous lines as you go. So go ahead and get this first guy in. So then we'll move our way up the outside seam, and I like to just put my ruler back on top of that line just so I can see it, and I make sure I got good pressure down on the ruler, and I put my hands behind here just to make sure it doesn't bunch up. And then we'll go ahead and run another straight line. I'll trim this out of the way. So line my ruler up with the next line. Go ahead and shoot across. Couple lines left and she's all finished. All the quilting on this beauty is done. And then all we got to do is the binding. Time to celebrate. That is one gorgeously completed quilt. We're going to get ready to square it up and bind it together. So what we're doing now is we're lining up our quilt on our cutting board to get a nice squared up cut on the edge for the binding. And so what Delilah is doing is lining our lines up and trying to cut and allow for about 1/4 inch, no more than 1/4 inch from your stitch, and that'll allow your binding to hide any of the white marks from your panel. There we are. God, she's looking really good.
It's all squared up now.
All squared up, ready for the binding. So we're going to go ahead and cut the binding. We're going to cut our strips at 2.5 inches, and we're going to cut 5 strips, because when you open them up you got 44 inches, and we're going to go ahead and cut 5 of them at 2.5. Alright, so you're going to take your first strip and line it up on your cutting board. And you're going to make a 45-degree mark. Blue marker. And you're going to go ahead and line it up on your good strip. I'm going to cut this little bit off here. And then you're going to sew this on your machine right across the line. And then you see once you've sewn it and you open it up, you'll have a nice mitered joint. So we'll take it over to the sewing machine. Alright, we're going to sew these two together. And you line up that the edges of these two pieces together, and then you're going to sew across that 45-degree angle that you drew. There we go. And you're going to cut this off, but leave 1/4 inch. And as you can see, we got 2 strips put together. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, but keep in mind that you want to make sure they all fall under the same way. So your next strip, you're always going to have the good side facing up and the bad side facing up on the strut that's going on top. And then you're going to want to sew it the same way you did last time. And as you can see, this will fall in line with how this one was just done. And you want to always make sure good side on the bottom facing up, and then your top piece going on top of the good side is your bad piece facing up. And then you can consistently go down the line and sew all your strips together. So now you're going to go ahead and you're going to fold your binding in half and iron your full 5 strips just like that, right in half. All right, we folded all of our binding in half and ironed it, so we got a nice seam. Now we're gonna go ahead and just cut it on a 45, just for this get started. So we're gonna go ahead and start binding this quilt, and we're gonna open it up and lay these two sides perfectly together. Line this up underneath our walking foot. Should be a little picky. Go ahead and drop the needle down. And we're going to sew for about an inch. This here just about an inch, and we folded this corner over, and that's just going to allow for a nice seam when we go to miter it in at the very end of the quilt. So now we're going to fold this end back over and start in about 2 inches, because we want to leave a little bit of room in here for when we go to tuck our final piece in. And there we go. So I'm getting close to the edge here. Now remember, the whole way you're binding, you're going to keep your raw edges together and a 1/4 inch from the end. Now we're going to ride this needle right to a 1/4 inch of this next end. A little bit, one more, and we're going to cut it there. And we're going to fold this up and then back down. So you'll have a little piece of triangle in here. So now we'll reposition our quilt. And start about a 1/4 inch in. You want to make sure you don't catch that last seam, but you're right on the edge, just about to catch it. And remember to keep your foot against the raw edges 1/4 inch. Bring the foot down. So we're almost at the end. So we're going to go ahead and cut our fabric so it'll fit inside of here. I'll just cut it the opposite way. And then when we get there, we're going to go ahead and tuck it in. So I'll sew the rest of this right here. And now I'm going to actually trim it a little bit more. And just tuck it in there. And then we'll finish this sew right off. So it folded in right there. We want to make sure that that's sitting flat. There we go. And that's the first side of the binding. We're going to flip it over and we're going to start sewing the rest. Alright, we're going to go ahead and now we've binded the front, so now we're going to fold it over. And we're going to run our foot with our raw edges. They're no longer raw, but we're going to run this against the right side of our foot, which is a 1/4 inch. And take your time to mind this as you're going, because you want to make sure it's consistent and that you catch that edge every time. You can turn your speed down on your machine a little bit if you're not comfortable. And then take the time to readjust. making sure that it's consistently a 1/4 inch. Running that edge along the side of your foot. So you can see now we've folded over a corner and it's left that flap that we did by folding back and folding over. So we're going to fold this down and then fold this other corner right over top of it and sew into both of them. And then sometimes I'd have to lift my foot just to tuck that corner in because I'm using a walking foot and the walking foot likes to bunch up the fabric. So now I've caught it. Now I'm going to go ahead and rotate my quilt. Fold over my edge and continue going. So finished result, she looks fantastic. I'm glad you guys could join us to watch this video, and I hope the video fulfilled everything you need to quilt this on your home machine. Please leave some comments for us down below and subscribe to our channel. We're new to YouTube, so we're going to have many more videos to come. And you can also visit us on our website at cottagetreasures.store. From me and Delilah, this is Cottage Treasures Quilting, and thanks for joining us.